Welcome to KTN Business Today, and it is a new week full of new possibilities. We'll be having a lot to discuss here on the program for the next 1 hour. Today is the World Cooperatives Day, and we'll be speaking to George Ototo from Cusco just to see some of the milestones that Kenya has achieved as a country and where can we improve when it comes to the cooperative movement. Over and above that, we'll be taking you through some interesting aspects around corporate governance. We did have an earlier interview with Professor Marvin King, who is one of the distinguished leaders when it comes to corporate governance, and he gives a very detailed analysis of where Kenya is when it comes to matters to do with corporate governance. All that coming up in the next 1 hour. But first, let's start you off with a look at how the markets have been performing this afternoon. Join me now on our Super Wall, and we should be able to walk you through some of the interesting numbers as of this hour. Well, today, the shilling is trading at 101.20 buying, selling at 101.40 against the dollar. We are seeing the shilling continue to appreciate compared to what we saw the last 2 weeks. So these are good sign for the Kenyan currency, where we are seeing a lot of inflows coming through from tourism. And of course, we did see the Valentine's week where we did notice a lot of purchases of flowers. This sort of strengthened the shilling against the US dollar, while the sterling pound has also edged downwards a bit. It's trading at 141 shillings and 92 cents buying, selling at 142.23. The euro has remained relatively stable, trading at 126 shillings and 4 cents buying, selling at 126.33. Well, those are some of the numbers as of this hour. Let's take a look at the NSE performance, and this is how the markets closed as of Friday. Well, turnover stood at 2.7 billion worth of shares, and the shares traded was at 98 million worth of shares. Also, the NSE 20 index has also remained very stable. It's actually at 3,713.25 points, and the bonds traded has surged downwards. Well, last week, part one, we did see total bonds traded was at 18 billion worth of bonds. Last week, bonds closed off at 13.3 billion worth of bonds being traded at the Securities Exchange. Let's turn our attention now to the most active counters, and Safaricom tops the charts. They've moved 4.45 million worth of shares. Kenya Commercial Bank also doing pretty well. They've moved 831,900 shares. Barclays Bank Kenya moving 633,400 shares. NIC Bank closing off the counters, moving 502,400 shares. Well, it seems a lot of activity happening in the banking sector. Well, as you can see there, we have KCB, Barclays Bank, NIC. It seems investors are taking positions as they look forward towards this particular trading season. Let's turn our attention now to the most, actually the gainers of this moment, and it will be interesting to see, are we going to see still some of the blue chip companies topping the charts there on the gainers? Well, we have Kakuzi, it's up 9.86%, share price at 390 shillings. Everready is also doing well, they're up 6.82%, share price at 2 shillings and 35 cents. Standard Chartered Bank also doing well in trading. The stock is up 5.31%, share price at 218 shillings. Closing off, we have Samia Africa. Well, they are also doing very well. They're up 4%. And interesting that one of the banks has made it there, and that is Standard Bank. And of course, this is an indication of the 20 most active counters and the most profitable counters on the bourse. Let's close off with a look at how some of the losers actually, which stocks are some of the losers as of this moment in time here on the exchange. Well, Home Africa not doing so well in trading. The stock is down 8%, share price at a shilling and 15 cents. Crown Badger coming in second, stock is down 4.88%, share price at 78 shillings. Uchumi Supermarkets not doing so well in trading this hour, and the stock is down 3.03%. Closing off, we have Nairobi Securities Exchange. Also, the stock is sort of battered a bit. It's down 2.5%. Share price at just under 19 shillings and 50 cents. Well, that's a look at how the markets have continued to perform as of this hour on trading. Well, let's take you to some of the stories we have prepared for you this afternoon. And details of the Kenya public debt has continued to elicit reactions among Kenyans, with the majority of them wondering how this sum was arrived at, yet there's too little to show for it. The public debt, which stands at 4.58 trillion shillings as of November last year, will see each Kenyan part with at least 100,000 shillings in order to clear it. In 2017 alone, records from Central Bank of Kenya indicate that 690 billion shillings was borrowed last year alone, hence shooting the debt up from 3.89 trillion, while 580 billion was borrowed in 2016.
100 wa Kenya nzima mpaka bibi ana mimba. Hii pesa hii hata mtoto ambaye yuko tumboni naye anadaiwa. Alifanya nini? Tunataka vile katiba inavyotueleza, kama kuna mkopo Wakenya waambiwe kuna mkopo umekopewa hivi na umefanya hivi, kwa sababu hizi pesa tunaambiwa Wakenya wengi hawajui zinafanya kazi gani.
Ikiwa mshahara kama sisi tunalipwa 15,000, niko na watoto wanane, na mimi mwenyewe na bibi yangu ambayo itakuwa ni 1 million hiyo pesa hiyo yote 5 trillion ilifanywa nini? Amba mpaka sasa hivi sisi hatujui hiyo pesa ilifanywa nini. Umesikia pesa za NYS zimeenda, hakuna kitu ambayo imekuwa. Golden Bag imeenda, hakuna kitu ambayo imekuwa.
Well, we continue to take that conversation forward, and Kilifi members of County Assembly plan to devolve Treasury to enable each department handle their own finances. Further, the county legislators intend to terminate the contract for a private company, Raindrops Limited, which was mandated to collect revenue on behalf of the county for 15 years, citing poor revenue collection. Albert Kiraga, the Budget Committee chairman, says that currently many projects have stalled while other contractors have huge debts because of the current financial systems are centralized.
In 2013-2014, they had projected around 700 million, and they ended up collecting less than 400 million. 2014-2015, they projected 1 billion, and they ended up collecting less than 400 million. Kwa hivyo kutoka hapo mpaka saa hii hatujamiti the targeted revenue collections in this county. Na kuna kampuni ambayo ilikuwa contracted, ambayo kampuni hii Raindrops inachukua 30% of the local revenue which is being collected. County government inachukua 70%. Na matatizo mengi sana yanapatikana kwa sababu ya hii kampuni inachukua ushuru na pesa mingi haiendi kwa ule mfuko wa serikali.
Well, very angry MCS there from Kilifi County. Well, let's take you to that conversation on corporate governance now. And the future of companies in Kenya could just be hanging in the balance if corporate executives fail to exercise good corporate governance. This emerged during the Corporate Governance Summit held in Nairobi. Well, I interviewed Marvin King, a champion for ethics, and picked his thoughts on where we are as a continent. And this was his answer.
Well, the critical thing is that there's got to be a mindshift change of the leaders of corporations in Kenya. And that mindshift change is away from how we were all taught to focus just on financial capital. Because Kenya is not an island away from the rest of the planet. It's part of the planet.
Sure.
And the planet, unfortunately, is a resource-constrained planet with increasing population, so an increasing demand for a decreasing natural asset base. And consequently, we have to learn to make more, but with less. Also, we've reached a stage where companies, both public and private, have been operating on a basis of using natural assets faster than nature has been regenerating them. The technical term is ecological overshoot. So it's quite clear that you can't carry on like that, because otherwise Kenya is carrying on with unsustainable development. You might think you're developing, but you're actually destroying value for your society. That's why the concept of integrated thinking was a concept whose time had come. Once the International Federation of Accountants had acknowledged that financial reporting is critical, but it's not sufficient, And to think only through a financial lens from a strategic point of view, you have to do that, but it's not sufficient. I, having been the chairman of the United Nations on governance and oversight, and the chairman of the GRI on sustainability, the Global Reporting Initiative, knew that companies were now reporting in two silos, financial and sustainability reporting. And I believed that that's not how companies operate. Not believed, it's a fact. Companies don't operate with financial capital in one room and human capital in another, natural capital in another building. These things are all interconnected, interdependent, integrated.
Yes.
And that's why the United Nations, 193 countries, including Kenya, signed the Sustainable Development Goals in April 15, which says that to have sustainable development by 2030, and we must achieve it. Otherwise, by the end of the century, your grandchildren won't have a planet as deleterious and deprived and ruined as it is by the excesses of corporate life. It'll be worse. It'll be unsustainable. Already, you probably know, in Delhi, between the 8th and the 11th of November, the pollution in the air was so bad that they closed schools, and a cricket test match between India and Sri Lanka was stopped because the players couldn't, it was dangerous for their health. When you go to some of the industrial cities in China, for example, today, when I go there, I wear a medical mask because the air is so polluted. And sometimes you can't see from one side of a highway to the other side of the highway. So the Earth is in a dire strait. We've got climate change, and even if you don't believe the scientists, you have to admit we've got unbelievable climatic conditions that have happened. We have enormous droughts, we have enormous downpours, we have mudslides, we have drownings, we have everything is happening.
Sure.
We've had frigid weather in North America and Northern England and Northern Europe. So temperatures of minus 24 degrees centigrade, I've never heard of before. And we've had heat, 45, 48 degrees centigrade heat.
Sure.
So it's clear that we can't carry on as usual. And integrated thinking is a model where the board applies its mind to how the company makes its money, and in doing so to see what are the positive impacts on those three critical dimensions mentioned by the United Nations: the economy, society, and the environment. And is the company, through its business model, enhancing the positive impacts? And is it eradicating or ameliorating the negative impacts? Then it is starting to create value for society. Otherwise, it's not creating value for society. It could be destroying value.
All right.
So integrated thinking and to do an integrated report were concepts whose time had come.
Picking off from the...
Well, leaders have to cross the self river, S-E-L-F. They've got to leave behind self-interest and self-concern. A lot of leaders don't make a decision because they're frightened of the risk on themselves. A leader who's worried about self-concern hasn't crossed that river to an area of intellectual honesty, where he or she applies him or herself only in the best interest of that incapacitated person, like a company or a politician, the best interest of the citizens of that country, not self-interest or self-concern. So you've got to change that mindset. And to show that you are actually an ethical person, you need integrity, you need to make sure you yourself are competent for the job. The mere fact that you accept a political appointment or a corporate appointment and you know you haven't got the skill or competence to do it shows you've got an unethical mind. You need to act responsibly yourself so that you make responsible decisions for the country or for the corporation, so the corporation is seen to be a responsible corporate citizen. You've got to make sure that you're accountable. Not just do a financial report, accountable in clear language so that a citizen in Kenya knows exactly what is happening inside the government, be it a county government, and a county level, or at the national level. You've got to have fairness. You've got to understand the needs, interests, and expectations of all the stakeholders. And you've got to be transparent. Tell it as it is. Not just highlight the positives and downplay the negatives, which leaders do. You must tell it as it is so the user can really make an informed assessment about what's happening.
And time for corporate managers right now, looking at the societal pressure when it comes to the lifestyle and, of course, the shortcuts that people take to become rich and wealthy. All this play a big role in someone being at the helm of an organization, a bank, that they do insider lending. There is total disregard of internal policies. So what is the root cause? Is it?
It's the corporate devil poking these people. Greed, arrogance, pride, sloth. Too much. Going from the outside looking, it seems you conforming. But you're spending time on conformance, but not actually focusing on value creation, honestly, in the best interest of the organization. And self-concern. These things, leaders have got to get rid of these things. So you need that absolute transparent thinking of mind and intellectual honesty to act in the best interest of that third party. You have to accept as a human being you come to that decision-making table with self-interest, prejudices, past experiences. You've got to take all that out of your mind. That's an intellectual exercise and act in the best interest of the person. Because your best asset is your personal reputation. If that goes, it's finished. And there's no better example than the president of South Africa at the moment. What's he got left? I'm going to assume he's got hundreds of billions he's made. I don't know. That's the allegation. I don't know if it's true. But what's he got left? His own political party has recalled him. He might not be the president still. I don't know what's happened in South Africa.
Actually waiting for that.
We're waiting for that. But that's just an example, and you see the examples all over the world happening. You've seen it in your country, corporate failures and then prosecutions, etc. So there's a mindset change that's got to happen about ethics.
Will define generations after you. So what's your message to CEOs and aspiring?
My message is you've got to make sure that you achieve those 4 outcomes which I have written about in King 4. And that is make sure that your organization that you are leader of has got effective leadership in an ethical culture, that you're creating value in a sustainable manner, that you've got adequate and effective controls and informed oversight over management, that you have legitimacy of operation and trust and confidence in the community in which you're operating. Now, the ultimate compliance officer are not compliance officers. It's your stakeholders. Your stakeholders will very quickly tell you, oh, we don't think there's legitimacy of operations. We don't think, and start losing trust and confidence. And you'll see it in conduct. If you're a listed company, they start selling the shares. If you're a private company, they stop buying your product. You don't attract the best employees. So you see the impact of, and companies with an outcomes-based approach to governance, these outside stakeholders can measure in the sense of saying, oh, there's trust and confidence being lost in this company because of events A, B, and C. And then you know you've got a problem there on the quality of the governance. And it's quality, not that mindless tick box. I've got a preponderance of non-executives, I've got a risk committee, I've got an audit committee, tick, tick, tick. Mindless. Applying your mind on a qualitative basis.
Making any strides as a continent when it comes to corporate governance? Where are we on this?
Well, I, as an African, I know I don't look like an African, but I am an African. And because of that, I've started the African Integrated Reporting Council, and I'm the chairman of it. And I'm proud to say that 9 countries, including Kenya is one of the 9, has now become a member. And I'm chairing the International Council in Tokyo in about 8 days' time. And on the agenda is that the African Integrated Reporting Council becomes a member of the International Council. And if you look at that International Council, it's got great international bodies on it, like the International Accounting Standards Board, the International Audit and Assurance Standing Board, the world chairman of the Big Four auditing firms, the World Bank, the Institute of Internal Auditors, etc., etc. And so I want that African name there and to have it there. And just to make people more aware and to get that integrated thinking going through Africa, both in the public sector and in the private sector.
Well, interesting conversation there with Professor Marvin King. Very passionate about corporate governance, saying that there needs to be a shift in matters to do with governance, and citing that you need to consider interrelational thinking. Well, we want to go for a quick commercial break, but just before that, let me tease the guest we will be speaking to with us in a short while. That is George Ototo from the Kenya Union of 7 Cooperative Societies. Many thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Abi.
And we'll be taking stock of some of the major milestones Kenya has achieved when it comes to matters to do with the cooperative movement. And remember, there's a major conference that will be happening in Mombasa, and that is the SACCO Leaders Convention. We'll be talking also about that. But after the break, please keep it locked on KTN News.
This is KTN News.
Naam, sijambo Lofty, niko
kwa taarifa hiyo, bila shaka utaendelea.
Na sisi tunasema hatuondoki hapa.
Tukae mahali ambapo tutafurahikia ule uongozi wako.
If you want to win tenders, it's okay. Resign.
Suluhu sasa ya mambo haya mawili.
mahali karibu sana George, ambaye ni mchanganuzi na mtaalamu wa masuala ya usalama.
Kuna vikundi vingi katika taifa la Kenya ambavyo vimeharamishwa.
Aki watu wetu tuko endangered species.
We should put all the negativity that has dogged our country behind us, because a new dawn is upon us and a wonderful dawn has arrived.
We were not even shaking hands.
Nilipofika Rais Kibaki akaniambia mambo mawili, kwamba nisiondoke, kwanza nimwambie Kofi Annan asiondoke, maana katu alikuwa ameshavunja mazungumzo, na aliyeniletea ujumbe Moses Wetangula.
We had said also, if we have to share power, then we have to constitutionalize the arrangement.
The accord was not going to be in the constitution, that there would be no amendment to the constitution. Those were my instructions.
Some of them would say, why don't you break off the talks? That is not what we wanted.
On Area Code, I seek to not only inform, but also educate you on the various aspects of the places that we call home and the communities that we live in.
Sio kama zamani. Biashara imenawiri vizuri sana. Hata tunaitwa Dubai.
We shall be delving into the issues of the social structure, the economics, the security status, the good, the bad, the ups and the downs of our neighborhoods. So join me, Timothy Otieno, every week on Area Code, only on KTN News.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back. You're just in time for the second part of the program. You're watching KTN Business Today with me, Abi Agina. And in a short while, I'll be speaking to the Managing Director of KUSCO as we take stock of the financial gains that the cooperative movement has placed on the mass market in the country. But before that, let's take you up on some of the other stories we have prepared for you. And poor quality goods and counterfeit products continue to wage its war against the facilitation of trade. Kenya has suffered the brunt of poor quality and counterfeit goods over the last few years, a battle that seems far from ending. This emerged during a stakeholders meeting hosted by the Kenya Bureau of Standards. We'll get to that story later on. Let's give you a dose of the next frontier for now. And dairy farming in Kenya has been undergoing a transformation that is making it one of the fastest growing sectors in Kenya. On this week's episode of The Next Frontier, Philip Keitani visited a farmer in Ongata Rongai who is setting the pace in modernizing the dairy sector in Kenya. Take a look.
Nested in Ongata Rongai and sitting on a 1-acre piece of land is Kenran Dairies, a modern example of a world-class dairy farm that is setting the pace in the country on how dairy farms need to look like. Meet Honorable Omingo Magara, the former Member of Parliament of South Mugirango constituency, who is also the brains behind Kenran Dairies.
2010 is when this journey started. And of course, sometimes when things happen, you think God is throwing you into the oblivion. But sometimes it works for the better. So 2010 is when I started this project, and I think I have no regrets about it whatsoever.
The farm started with 6 cows in 2010, and in a span of 10 years, the farm has seen its herd grow from the original 6 to the current 62 cows.
I bought 3 animals first from Rift Valley Technology Farm. That time they were costing about 150,000 shillings per cow. Then those were in calf. All of them gave me heifers and I was excited. So I went for the second round again. I bought 3 other animals. And all of them gave me boys. And you know, for a dairy farmer, boys are a disaster. But I think that God equalized that. So this is the conventional semen. 50% chance gave me 3 heifers and 3 bulls. And then that's how I grew. Today we have about 63 animals, and I've lost about 20.
An industry that has been around for a millennia, dairy farming is in the midst of an era of modernization. The world's population is growing at a breakneck speed. This surge in growth, combined with increasingly pressing need to find renewable, sustainable methods for feeding the planet, demand an evolution in farming techniques, and that is exactly what Kenran Dairies is striving to achieve.
This journey is not so easy because you can also get disappointed along the way because of the cost of feeds, hardship areas like Ongata-Rongai. We have not had rain for the last 4 or 5 years. So we depend 100% on import to this farm. That is a major cost. And when you find it painful that even dairy inputs are taxed, Lucerne from Naivasha, you pay VAT, is actually obnoxious. It's not only primitive but absurd that use other people subsidizing feeds as we are taxing the feeds for our cows.
According to Magara, the end consumer obtaining milk that is clean and free of harmful bacteria is paramount. But this can only be achieved by using innovative techniques and high-quality milking machines.
In this country today, people are suffering because of cancer of the stomach. Reason, farmers who are desperate, they produce milk today, and in 8 hours, they must sell or they waste the milk. And that desperation, they are trying to preserve milk using unconventional ways, including adding formalin, a straight base of cancer, and hydrogen peroxide. But we can easily put our farmers together through the counties. They buy a chilling tank of 2,500 or 5,000 liters. Farmers then can collect their milk, which they can chill for 7 days without pressure.
The farm employs innovative technologies in order to maintain as suitable a business as possible. Nothing from the land and from the farming process goes to waste. They even harness the power of methane gas from the cow's manure and use the gas to heat all water being used to clean the milking parlor and all equipment at the farm.
I believe in the theory of Miles Monroe, who believes that if you have knowledge, pass it on so that you die empty. Because if you have it, it doesn't benefit you. So we are willing to offer knowledge to people in our gates, our doors are open. We also import semen. We can give some training to agricultural institutions or universities that do agriculture. As I said, if you have an interest in something, you can do it.
To feed the world, farmers like Omingo Magara need to be on cusp of convergence with innovation and sustainability if they are to produce enough. The farm plays music to its cows just before milking, which they say help to relax the cows, and in return, they give more milk.
So research has proven that milk drops, there's an hormone from between the horns, that when it drops to the cow for stimulation or a milk letdown, it lasts for 7 minutes. So if you have a cow that has more than a high producer, by hand you may take more than 7 minutes. And any time after the 7 minutes, you're losing milk. That's number one. Number two, this system hygienically manages the milk because nobody touches the milk until it goes to the chilling tank. And number three, when you efficiently milk with this machine, it reduces on time. And hygienically, the machine is managed and the milk is managed. And thirdly, the cows don't suffer from mastitis because when they withhold milk after the 7 minutes, the chance of mastitis happening on the cow is major.
Kenran Dairies has an automated milking parlor with a state-of-the-art machines that can milk 10 cows simultaneously in 5 minutes. Currently, the farm milks 24 cows per day, producing 500 liters. These machines record the amount of milk from each cow and transfer it to a cooling chiller where it can be stored for up to 4 days.
We encourage that this can be done, and it's possible, it's doable. If others can do it, anybody can. And as I told you, we have a solution for small-scale farmers, big-scale farmers, and two, even this is fairly large. You can start with three bottles both sides, that's a double 3 or a double 2, and then provide for this tunnel to grow it to whatever amount you require, including a double 10, meaning you are milking 20 cows at a go, 10 and 10.
The milk must be tested and analyzed regularly. Using smart systems like this one, the inside of the milking liners are rinsed every single time after milking, ensuring that the level of hygiene remains high. Animal grooming is also a top priority at the farm, which helps the cows look clean and healthy. Despite Kenya being a leading producer of milk and dairy products in the region, Kenya is still not able to meet the high demand of milk in the country. But with this kind of investment, Kenya will soon be able to meet the growing demand of milk and dairy products. Philip Keitang for The Next Frontier.
Very innovative way of doing dairy farming. Many thanks, Philip Keitani, for that report. Well, and news just in, as you can see on our lower thirds, is that Harambee Stars coach Paul Put has resigned, and he has cited personal reasons to his resignation. Well, if you're just joining us, that is the breaking news that we are having right now, that the Harambee Stars coach Paul Put has resigned, and he has cited personal reasons for his resignation. And we'll be getting a detailed breakdown on Zili Zala from the sports team led by Hassan Juma. So keep it locked here for more details on that developing story. For now, we want to shift gears and get into that interesting conversation around the cooperative movement. And right now, I'm joined by the Managing Director for Cusco, and that is George Ototo. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Abby.
And looking at the cooperative movement, it is said that it has played a pivotal role in terms of actually making Kenya a financially literate country. Right now, we are talking about a literacy rate of 60% plus. Perhaps, what is the next phase for the SACCO movement across the country?
Our main interest, Abby, has been financial inclusion. And in this situation, we are talking about ease of accessibility to this finance. And besides that, we are talking about financial services and products which are affordable to individuals and also businesses. Yes.
All right.
Now, the next issue we have is how to penetrate the market further and how to bring in the so-called the unsaccoed. That is just a word that we've coined to mean those who are not in the SACCO movement. And talk about this wherever we are, trying to interest everybody who can save money and also access credit to join the movement. Some time ago, up to 2016, we had a penetration rate of about 24%. So it is still our belief that the next big thing around here is not just the technology that we use to offer our services, but the SACCO sector as being the next big thing. Yes.
And speaking about the SACCO sector being the next big thing, there's a major event that will be happening at the end of the week that will be bringing together SACCO leaders in a convention. Perhaps what is set to be the main agenda for that meeting?
The main agenda here is how SACCOs create a financial inclusion within this country. And this is an event which is called the SACCO Leaders Convention. And this is going to be the third time that we are running it in this country. This time we'll have it in Mombasa, White Sands, running between 22nd to 24th of this month. That is starting this Thursday. Yes.
All right. And let's expand the conversation, George. Talking about financial inclusion is one thing for us to celebrate as a country, as a continent. And it's a different story altogether for that farmer down there in Belgut who is yet to get access to credit facilities. They cannot get money towards improving their small-scale agriculture. Do you still see pockets of untapped markets in Kenya?
Yes, Abby, there are a lot, there's too much about what has not been tapped in terms of financial inclusion. Just like you have rightly put it, the small-scale farmer down there, and the risks that are associated with such kind of environments, making it a little bit difficult for them to access credit. So we've been going out there and trying to coordinate even the mama mbogas to form small cooperatives that can help them access credit and also help them understand what savings is all about and why it is important to save, for example, to help them access credit, to also help them have savings for retirement, for example. That we have been doing. And we are also telling the SACCOs that, or SACCO members who are in the urban centers, that they need to invest in farming because we are food insecure. And by these people investing in farming, we are capable of improving our food situation in this country.
And for this to happen, George, it simply means either SACCOs have to be innovative in terms of rolling out products, and the other aspect is consumer awareness. Where are we on these two fronts?
When it comes to issues of the consumers, you need to understand that SACCOs are owned by the members. These same members own the cooperative. At the same time, they are the consumers of the same product. So we normally have what we call the member education programs cutting across the country, talking about cooperatives, the rights of these members, how they should access the products that are offered by these cooperatives across board. At the same time, you see, it's normally a matter of choice. There are those consumers who still be in SACCOs, but still do a bit of brand switching from the SACCO business or the SACCO model to the banking model. We have seen that a lot in this country, where people belong to multiple kind of organizations as long as they are providing services to them.
So talk to us about how much is the SACCO industry worth in the country, and if you're to compare this with other developing economies like Egypt, South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, where is Kenya as a country?
We have national savings amounting to around 800 billion Kenya shillings at the moment. An asset base of almost similar figure as well. If you try to compare with places like Ghana, then you realize that our savings portfolio and the loan portfolio and the assets that are controlled by the movement is higher. There's a time we were trying to do the ranking of SACCOs in Africa in terms of the asset base. And then we tried ranking the first 20. That was in 2015. And we realized that number 1 to 11 were Kenyan SACCOs. Number 12 and 13 were South African SACCOs, but predominantly white-owned. And then from number 14 to 20 were Kenyan SACCOs. So you can see that we were controlling almost 98% of the top 20 SACCOs, if you look across board. Now, in terms of SACCO sector, mobilization of savings, in terms of credit, then you realize that we rank number 1 in Africa, and we rank number 7 worldwide. So we, as Kenyans, sit in what we call the credit unions, G10, just by virtue of what we control domestically here. And that is how somebody like me sits at the World Council to represent Africa in terms of cooperatives, and also in what we call IRU, also to represent the same, just because of the significance of this sector that we have around here.
Quite commendable, I must say. But is this translating into more people taking up SACCO products? Because as of now, a good number of SACCOs, the main area of focus has been land buying, and transitioning people to home ownership has been a different story altogether. Is it time that SACCOs also go back to the drawing board and craft very efficient solutions for SACCO members?
Actually, Abby, that was not our core mandate. Our core mandate was basically savings and lending. But with the time, and because of the demand for housing in this country, there was a bit of shift in terms of the product portfolio or product offerings. And that's how some of these cooperatives started divesting into land buying and probably giving out loans for putting up structures. But our core mandate is not that. Now, we also realized that that was not the best model. So there was this training that we kept on offering as Cusco, and telling SACCOs that were interested in buying land and also putting up residential houses to create subsidiary companies that can handle this, so that we don't convert member savings into brick and mortar. You know what I mean? Because the returns from these houses is long term, while our loans have a turnaround time of about 3 years. So that is something that we have been encouraging. That is how you realize that there's a number of SACCOs, like Stima SACCO, for example, has got Stima Investment SACCO. We have Safaricom SACCO, which has also Safaricom Investment SACCO. We have Kenya Police SACCO, which also has a subsidiary called the Kenya Police Investment SACCO. So that the investment SACCOs, yes, still owned by the same members, but involved in a different objective altogether of acquiring land and also on lending to members who would wish to have mortgages running up to 15 years to actualize that.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're saying it's not a sustainable model, but...
It is sustainable, but not when you are looking at it from the concept of savings and credit. If you introduce that without introducing it as a loan, then it cripples the organization through cash flow mismatch.
All right.
Yes.
Many thanks, George, for your insights into this important subject. And of course, a lot still remains untouched when it comes to the SACCO movement. And we'll be looking forward to seeing some of the deliberations that will be coming out of the SACCO Leaders Forum that will be happening in Mombasa. We continue to train our lenses, I beg your pardon, on some of the developments from that end. Well, let's move on to some more news now. And 4 counties in the coast region could soon see major infrastructural transformation being rolled out by the Kenya Urban Roads Authority under the Low Volume Seal program. Tana River and Lamu counties, with a history of insecurity and marginalization, are among the counties that will benefit from the 50 kilometers tarmac roads targeting urban centers. Kura is overseeing the 3.6 billion construction works in Lamu, Tana River, Mombasa, and Kilifi counties. Kura Acting Director of Policy, Strategy and Compliance, Engineer Abdul Rashid Mohammed, says the ongoing infrastructural upgrade in the region is part of the national government's blueprint project of tarmacking 10,000 kilometers of roads to offer transport solutions in the country.
When they open the traffic,
will take us for 24 months at a cost of about 545 million shillings. This being under the Roads 10,000 program, we will be able to do milestones so that we can be able to pay the contractor. So far, we have done 2 milestones to bitumen standards, and the works are still continuing. We have about 2 more milestones, which we expect to be completed very soon.
And so we have discussed quite some issues, which we believe is, if pursued, can be able to help us take Hola Town to the level of urban status required. We really appreciate what the Urban Roads Authority is doing, and we believe out of the deliberation strengthening the areas we have discussed, we can be able to achieve more of what we are anticipating to do.
Sisi tunafurahia sana kuletewa maendeleo kama haya. Tungefurahia zaidi kama hizi barabara zingetengenezwa vizuri ili tuweze kupata faida, tuwe connected na the outside the counties, so that hizi bidhaa zetu kama maembe wakati wa mvua hapa zinaathirika, maembe yanaoza, watu hawezi kusafirisha. kwenda kuuza bidhaa zao.
Well, that brings us to the end of business today. Many thanks for your valid company. Well, from us, that's where we leave it at. My name is Abi Agina. Coming up next is our Swahili team with more news from across the world. Thank you so much.
KTN News. Get the whole story.
The dairy industry in Kenya accounts for 14% of the agricultural GDP and 6 to 8% of the country's GDP. According to USAID, the industry generates an estimated 1 million jobs at farm level and an additional 500,000 indirect waged employment and another 750,000 jobs in support services. Dairy sector is a vital sector in poverty alleviation in both the rural and urban areas as it contributes to food and nutritional security and increased household incomes.
Dairy farming is a business like any other business and it pays. The problem is the mentality that we found in farming, especially livestock farming. It was termed as very hard and can be like a bondage and it's dirty work.
The Rift Valley and Central regions produce the bulk of milk in the country. However, other regions include Eastern, Nyanza and Western regions also produce significant quantities of milk.
For a cow to produce well, 30% of production comes from the genetic makeup of that cow. But the whole 70% is a management issue, including how you feed that cow.
Now the government has been working on ways of also introducing high-quality producing cows in arid regions of the country. So far, the Saiwal breed has been identified as the best dual-purpose breed for these dry and arid regions, as the breed is credited for its ability to withstand conditions which other introduced cattle breeds find it difficult, especially those in the Asals.
The Saiwal breed originally came from India and Pakistan. But we have indigenized it. We have perfected it. Right now, as we speak in this country, we have close to 1,200 thereabout heads of Saiwal.
Saiwal bulls have been bred at the Calro Research Station in Naivasha since the late 1960s. The Saiwal will produce milk with little supplementation and can let down milk without calf on foot. Farmers interested in acquiring this germplasm to upgrade their local cattle do so either through the use of artificial insemination,